If you are watching this video, you probably have an interest for books or for reading, and yet you've been struggling to get into the habit of reading regularly. Perhaps it's hard for you to choose reading over scrolling, playing video games, or watching Netflix. So in this video, I'll tell you how to get into the habit of reading. I'll give you several tips, because you know that reading is good for you, or that you would gain a lot from reading books, learning from them, and just the habit of reading is very healthy as well. It really helps your mind, it helps you with your focus. And this video is everything I wish I knew when I started reading. Now, how to make books more interesting. The first thing you need to keep in mind is that reading a book will always feel more boring than playing video games or watching YouTube. These platforms have been optimized to be the most rewarding and stimulating things we can consume that are extremely engaging, high in dopamine, and books just weren't designed to compete with that. However, you can get addicted to the feeling of reading. I'll give you a comparison. You know that running is good for you and you want to run more, but every time you have the choice between putting on your shoes and going outside or sitting on the sofa and watching TV, of course, the second option will always be a bit more tempting. But with experience, you know that once you finally go outside and you finally start running, it starts to feel enjoyable. You're no longer thinking about how it was hard to get into it, and you know that the reward at the end is you feeling great, is you feeling satisfied with what you just did. And trust me, reading really is enjoyable. The activity of reading is very pleasant. You're sitting by yourself, you're learning, you're talking with the author in a way. You are visualizing a story, or you are learning about a topic that really interests you. And trust me when I say that you can get addicted to that. Now, how do you get into the habit of reading? I'll say that the best way to start is to read at night. You know that you should be dropping any device 1 hour before bed, right? The blue light coming from the screens is really bad for sleep. So an hour before bed, you stop watching anything, take a shower, brush your teeth, get in bed, and pick up a book. It will help you fall asleep. It will avoid you from being on your phone, on a screen, with something very high in dopamine. And that way, you are not choosing reading over something else that you could be doing, because you know that by that time, you shouldn't be doing anything else. Another way is to give yourself a daily goal. Some people like to go with 10 pages a day. It could also be a chapter a day, depending on how big the chapters are, depending on the book, that can change a lot. Or it could be 20 or 30 minutes every day, even 10 minutes just for a start. But just give yourself a daily challenge that will have you coming back and get into the habit. This tip really does follow the 5 minutes rule. You will not want to do it, but if you force yourself to read just 10 pages, more often than not, you're gonna end up reading more than that, because the habit is built by starting the activity, and you'll see that once you are into it, sometimes you don't even want it to stop. Another one I would say is to always keep a book with you. And you'll be surprised how much opportunities you have throughout the day where you could just read a few pages here, a few pages there. By the end of the week, your book is almost finished. I remember back in university, I was studying English literature. So of course we had a lot of books to read by then. And at that time, I was not really a big reader, which might be surprising for the studies I was doing. But the fact is, I had also translation classes and linguistic classes, and I was much more into those than into the literature classes. But I had to read some books. And I remember at that time, I would have probably 3 or 4 books to read every month, which was a lot. But when I started incorporating the habit of always carrying the book with me, I would read on the bus, in the subway, in between classes. You know, sometimes you have like 10, 15 minutes before the class starts again. And I would just read a few pages. And even if you go to the doctor and you are in the waiting room, you can just read a few pages there. If you're going to pick up your girlfriend somewhere and you're waiting for her in the car, then you could read some pages there. And then if you read in the evening, 30 minutes before falling asleep, you'll be surprised how fast you can get through a book like that, and you don't even realize it. Now, with all these tips, you're probably wondering, what kind of books should I start reading with? One way you could do it, which is a very famous one, is to read the book from a movie that you've enjoyed. It could be Game of Thrones, Twilight, Harry Potter, The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. Usually you have some interest for the story, for the characters. You're interested in reading the books because you know you'll get more details, so that gives you an excuse to get into those books. I will say though that this advice is not 100% true, because for some movies you're so used to the fast pace and the action, and reading the book will sometimes, for some people and for some books, feel a bit more slow, and that may even end up being boring because you already know the story and you're watching the story going at a very slow pace. So for some people that can be a challenge, but I would say that for most people it's a great way to start. My personal advice, which has helped me the most, was to get into non-fiction. Because if you are like me, most of the books you've read were novels from school, and you don't realize how novels are just a small part of what books can give you. I'll just show you around my library just so you can see, but this is the story of Japanese mixology. It's extremely interesting. You've got beautiful chapters, pictures. This one is about the history of the old-fashioned. I've got books on wine, on whiskey, on tea, on rum, the history of rum and the new world at the same time. So you learn both about how rum became what it is today, but at the same time you learn a lot about the history of the Americas. Coffee, beer. This is part of my studies that I did in wine and spirits. So if that didn't make sense for you, this is why I have so many books on those topics. You've got books on languages. This is a book on the history of Vietnam. This one is about the history of famous women in America. But you also have philosophy and self-improvement, and I've got a lot of them. The Way of the Superior Man is an incredible self-improvement book on masculinity. I've got some classic philosophy here from Stoicism. I've got Seneca, I've got Marcus Aurelius, I've got Epictetus, books on relationships, books on human psychology. I've got this one around Asian war-related books. I've got books on the samurais, the art of war. So yeah, just so you realize that fiction and novels is just a small part of what you can read, but you have history, documentaries, philosophy, self-improvement, biographies, a lot of ways you can start reading a book. And the last kind of books you can start with is read a book that you've been hearing about for a really long time and you are yet to read it. Maybe it's a classic book that you want to read for your culture. I don't know, something like Oliver Twist, The Lord of the Rings, Narnia, or even from some video games like The Witcher here. The games are based on a book saga, and I've read the first tome. I need to read all the other ones, but that's another way you can get into books. Okay, so now we know how to implement reading into our daily habits. You found a book that you want to start reading. How do you stay consistent long term? Now, even today, I get seasons where I stop reading. Maybe I just finished a book, and I moved on to doing some other things at night, and without realizing, it's been a month since the last time I read a book. So the important thing is to keep the habit of reading regularly, and for that, you want to avoid a few things. Always keep a reading list in your notes or on a piece of paper. Know what you want to read next. Maybe you can even buy the book so that it encourages you to finish reading the current book so that you can start reading the next one. But otherwise, just keep a note on your phone and mark down all the books you hear about that you want to read, so that whenever you finish a book, you are already excited to get into another one, so you can order it from Amazon or from a local bookshop. And that is a great way to not drop the habit. The other thing is for you to follow some YouTubers or content creators that talk about books. So they will suggest some books, and sometimes it will inspire you to read them. Or sometimes they will talk about a book you've heard about but didn't think about reading. And now that you see them hyping it, you're interested in reading that. And I've got so many books that I've been recommended from the internet by such creators, and most of the time it's been a very pleasant read, and it keeps the enjoyment of discovering something new. For instance, the other day I saw this YouTube video on my feed by Crizzybooks titled Books Like Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, it's a video game that I absolutely love. And of course, when you see that, you're like, yeah, I would love to read a book that puts me in this ambience of Western, Far West, cowboys, gangs, and all that. And in this video, he gives you a lot of book recommendation based in this time period and in those places with similar characters. And just thanks to a video, you now get book recommendation that you're looking forward to reading. And there we go. These are my tips to get you into reading, or to get you back into reading if that's a habit that you've lost over the years. I can't emphasize enough how much I love books, both for the object in itself, the story it carries, the personality that a book can have if you carry it with you and you mark it and you get it a bit stained and you get some sand into it if you read on the beach. And a book carries a lot more than just the words on those pages. And I love the book as an object, but also I love reading. I love how it makes me feel. I love how calm and focused I am when I'm reading. And after reading, it helps me sleep better. It helps me learn a lot of new things, get into the perspective of different characters from different stories. I mean, the list of benefits is infinite. And the last thing I'll tell you is that when you get into the habit of reading and it becomes second nature, you start to value quality over cheap dopamine. And after a while, you'll realize that scrolling stupid stuff on Instagram feels ridiculous and a real waste of time. And your brain will remember how much you love reading and how much value you get from reading, that you will feel an urge to drop your phone and just get a book and spend some time reading instead. And I think this is the place where you want to get in the end, because reading will give you much more than what your phone or stupid stuff on the internet can do. That's it for me, guys. Hope you found value in this video. If you have other tips, please let me know in the comments so we can all help each other out. If you need some book recommendations as well, I'd be happy to help you. So ask your questions in the comment and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.